Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. You know, this is an era where it's a good time to be a movie fan and a comic book fan. And at the same time, though, with all these movies coming out, I think we all get a little jaded because, you know, as I said, we're getting treated very well. So we have a high bar and high standards. So, you know, when news breaks, I think, we weigh it even-handedly. However, I have to say that some news broke yesterday afternoon that I got so excited about it. It was like the beginning of the comic book to movies era. I just totally geeked out, and it was such a surprise because I'd given up all hope on this ever happening. And the news is that DC and Vertigo's Fables finally has a serious shot at becoming a film. Warner Brothers, it looks like, is going to stop playing around and make a run for it. And I just think that's so exciting. Now, before I tell you how it's been set up as a film, let me give you a quick introduction for those of you who aren't familiar with Fables. Fables is a comic book that came out in 2002. It totally, started the whole dark fairy tale thing, or was on to how that would appeal to audiences before Hollywood was. And it's the story where there's a giant war in the world of Fables. And the great thing is that every country has kind of like every country's fables. They're like their own country in the fable world. And it's very well done, very even-handed. And so there's a war. So to escape the emperor, who's just wiping everybody out, they come to the real world, these fairy tale characters, and they live in hiding in a place called Fabletown. And it's a really complex, interesting adult story. I can't recommend it highly enough. It has a spin-off of Jack of Fables. It has a spin-off right now, again, of Fairest. I mean, we're just talking about a ton of comics sold, great stuff, never misses a beat. I don't think I've ever really read a bad Fables story. So I know you might be like, wow, 10 years this thing's been going? I'm just going to wait for the movie. But I have to say, I really think that it's worth picking up, and you will burn through those trades like nobody's business. So pick it up. I mean, I remember a couple years ago for Christmas, that was like how I started it. I bought like the first 6 or 7 trades, and I read them by the end of the holiday season. So anyway, what's the movie going to be? Well, none other. Warner Brothers is bringing out the big guns. None other than David Heyman, who produced the Harry Potter franchise, is going to take over. And I think he's a great choice. I think he has a lot of respect for this kind of material, for adaptations. I think also for world building. I think that was Harry Potter's strongest asset, was its world building, evidenced by how popular the Harry Potter theme parks are, which are built by the film design crew. And they're also thinking of bringing on the director from A Royal Affair. That's the Danish film that was nominated for Best Foreign Picture. For the Oscars, and Kon-Tiki was in that same category, and that duo from Norway got Pirates 5. So even if they aren't minding the on-screen talent, I guess it's refreshing to see them going behind the camera and Hollywood picking up those directors for major projects. So a Fables movie, super exciting to me. I can't wait. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I think that maybe if Warner Brothers gets this right, it'll give them the strength and courage to really try and tackle the DC cinematic universe. But I can't be more excited. Pick up Fables. All right, second story of today. They're talking about comic book movies. There have been a lot of photos leaking online. You can just Google it very easily and it'll come up. I usually would show you the photos, but the idea of this show is to get it up fast in the morning, so I try to keep the editing to a bare minimum, as you've noticed. But so the Winter Soldier, a lot of photos are coming up, and I have to say, I'm intrigued. I'm not a big fan of the first Captain America movie. I liked the tone, but I felt that story-wise it was very weak, and I didn't like that it was mostly 2 montages for the whole film. I was like, that's weird. It's like Montage Man from Robot Chicken. Hilarious sketch. But this one looks to me almost like a cool political thriller. Like Robert Redford is in the film, and it's reminding me of the cool films Robert Redford would make like back in his heyday. So the photos we've seen Chris Evans walking around with this leather jacket with, interestingly, the Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson. Hate her hair. They've given her like this parted down the middle, straight red hair that's very flat. I think it's an unflattering cut. And I bring this up only because I thought her hair was so fantastic in the Avengers. But I mean, I'm glad to see more Black Widow. I really like Scarlett Johansson's work in the role. Some of the photos I saw made me a little bit, talk about being, I was just talking about how, we're getting more unforgiving with comic book movies, and here I am nitpicking these photos. But I have to say, there's a photo where she's kicking, Agent Casper, I think his name is, the guy who's going to replace Coulson in the films. I believe that's what's going to happen. Kicking him down, and she's smiling. And I really that rubbed me the wrong way, because what I've liked about Scarlett Johansson's portrayal of Black Widow is that she's like a no-nonsense all business person, assassin and agent. And I don't like it when they take female characters and make them sassy. It's a common comic book thing where the female character has to be all sassy and making sarcastic lines about how guys, she's better than them, and it's really horrible. I don't like that. It's really I think one of my biggest pet peeves in comics, actually. So I would hate to see that brought over into the films. But I'm still excited to see her in there. I really hope that this is like the Captain America movie where he has like really huge co-stars. So I hope that it's kind of him and Black Widow running around a lot together. And the Winter Soldier, I have to say, looks very cool from what I'm seeing. I think that this is like maybe a Bane level development of a character where you're going to see people cosplaying as him quite a bit. Because even though I think I've said there are problems with The Dark Knight Rises, I'm going to make that video. I'll make it before Superman comes out. But about talking about where The Dark Knight Rises succeeded and failed. But it certainly captured people's attention with the Bane character design, more than I think anybody else. So Winter Soldier, if you're into cosplay, you might want to start making your costume now. So the third story of the day is that it's the big anniversary for Wizard of Oz coming up, and of course it's another opportunity to release a very expensive Blu-ray package. But Warner Brothers is doing something else which I think is interesting, and they're going to release an IMAX 3D version of The Wizard of Oz in theaters, IMAX theaters obviously, in September. I think that's fascinating, and I have to say the 3D re-releases have been some of them have really hit the mark and done very well. I haven't seen all of them because I was disappointed in The Lion King 3D, but when I went to see Finding Nemo 3D, as I said in my review, it really was one of the best movie-going experiences I had that year, and one of the top ever, because it was so immersive with that kind of technology, the 3D and Finding Nemo, that I just had such a wonderful time, and it was just great to re-experience that movie. So the word is that Warner Brothers has been very quietly remastering Wizard of Oz, so it really looks top-notch. It's not, you're not going to have that problem, which was my problem with The Lion King, is that the medium of hand-drawn animation didn't translate as well to 3D. It kind of made it look a little too simple. But hopefully this is going to look amazing. I didn't get the chance to see Jurassic Park in 3D because, if you miss it the opening weekend, it's kind of hard to go circle back and pick it up. But I did the audience review, and audiences were really impressed with that 3D. So it is possible to kind of do a great post-conversion. And, Star Trek Into Darkness was a post-conversion, and a lot of people were very happy with the way that was done. So would I see Wizard of Oz in IMAX 3D? I have to be honest, it depends on what else comes out that weekend. But I'm highly tempted already. How about you? So write down below if you would see Wizard of Oz in IMAX 3D, because it's going to be expensive. All right, so the questions today are kind of related. They're both about adapting material from the page to the big screen. So the first question was, how do I feel about changing race and gender when bringing comic book characters to the silver screen? And, obviously, as everybody knows, I have been really upset about Lois Lane having red hair in Man of Steel. It just bothers me, and that's because I feel it so goes against the character. I feel it's so out of character. And I think that's my answer. I'm fine with changing something as long as it stays true to the character's, persona. If you have the right vibe. Lois Lane is an edgy person who is from the big city, and I really, if you walk over to think about the ink, I have guest star Samantha Cross comes on, another comic book reporter, and we do a really in-depth look at Lois Lane, so you can see my thoughts on that there. But I just feel the red hair is so out of character, and Amy Adams just so personally looks out of character for Lois Lane. And also, and the other thing is if Lana Lang didn't exist, maybe this one bothers me as much, but she looks so much like Lana Lang. But the thing is that Perry White is being played by Lawrence Fishburne, and I have no problem with that. As a matter of fact, I think that's a great idea. And I think characters that aren't particularly well defined, like Perry White, are a great opportunity for changing things up. If a character works on the page, don't change it. Lois Lane works. There's no reason to change her. I mean, I think she works. Some people I know don't agree. But Perry White, he's not doing anything. Electro with Jamie Foxx. Later this week we have a Between the Pages coming out, also on Think About the Ink, talking about Electro. And you'll see his character really has never done that much in comic books. I mean, these characters are really underdeveloped, and since there's such a lack of strong female characters, I have to say, except within the X-Men, I think that there are a lot of problems with the way women are portrayed, but there's a big problem with the way female characters are portrayed in comics and in film, and minorities. So other races, so why not give them a great new character, and everybody wins in my opinion. So that's how I feel. Although I will say on a side note, I don't like Jimmy Olsen being a girl, and I've said this because I think Jimmy Olsen does work. Jimmy Olsen had his own title. Jimmy Olsen is iconic. The other problem I have is that I think it makes it look like only women work at the Daily Planet, and I don't like that at all. I feel like sometimes that happens. I feel like they take a strong character or a woman's great role, but then they make everyone there a woman, and then it kind of makes it seem like, well, guys don't want this anymore, so you ladies can have it. So that's a huge problem I have with making the Daily Planet so female-centric. Because Lois Lane's always been someone who's been able to compete, and I think that you're kind of bringing her down wrong. So that's the first question. The second question was, I had said that I thought The Hunger Games was a poor adaptation because it couldn't satisfy readers of the book, and that's actually not exactly what I said. But someone asked me about that, and they said, well, I know a lot of people who've read the books and they really love it. So let me clarify what I meant by that. I think that a lot of people like The Hunger Games who read the books is because it's kind of like a companion piece to the books. So they're even if they're not aware of it, they're filling in the blanks mentally from what they've read. So they're just focusing on whether or not they like the casting and whether or not, like, as I said, if the vibe is there. But what I meant with my statement is that if The Hunger Games doesn't work for someone who's never read the books, because I feel that we're sitting there being like, I don't get it. Because we can't fill in the blanks. There's big problems. We don't understand, I think Katniss's growth as a character, really not, everything's rushed. The world building in The Hunger Games, I felt, was extremely sloppy, really poor. And I don't know if that came from, creative or a lack of budget, but I just had huge problems with that. So what I mean by The Hunger Games, and books in general, I think this is a problem, and maybe why they're not catching on as well as Twilight. That was another question someone asked. Why is Twilight so successful while these copycat films are not? Which is a shame, because I really liked Warm Bodies. I feel that I would have hoped that would have done better. But it was a little too 80s for its own good, maybe. That might have been what hurt it. But yeah, so I think that even if there's a legion of fans, someone should be able to watch a movie based on a book without having read that book and totally get it. Like Gone with the Wind. No one's like, oh, you got to read Gone with the Wind. You can watch Gone with the Wind on its own, and it's fantastic. So that's today's morning movie news. Write down below your own thoughts on today's stories and the questions that I answered, and anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions you'd like answered tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.